Hello, Cheryl Willis over at eXp Realty coming at you with the monthly market update for September 2025. Lots of information to share. Two big topics, interest rates and recession. So let's start with recession. Are we there yet? No. And will it happen? Kind of nobody knows. But I'll tell you, when you look at this map and you really kind of assess how the country is mapped out and what's going on regionally, it kind of shows you that Arizona, not, we're not shielded from a recession, but it is definitely going to impact us differently than the rest of the country and significantly different from 2008. Let's talk about some of the other numbers. So we look at the CPU numbers on a national level. This is going to be the inflation rate. On a national level, it's 2.6, but the Phoenix area is 0.2%. So again, we're a little bit stronger than the national level. Also, when we look at unemployment on a national level is 4.3. Phoenix is at 4.1. And although this is higher than it has been earlier this year, I believe at one point we were down to 3.6. If we look long term, 4.3 is not completely out of the norm. The jobs report was really surprising in August. We're going to talk about how that affected interest rates in a moment. But when we look at the different sectors here in the greater Phoenix area, and again, I know so many people are hoping for a market crash. They want that 20%, that 30% decline because they want to come in and buy a home then. A lot of things have to happen, and it's just not happening. It won't happen in the Phoenix area because, again, in 2008, the number one sector that we had in the greater Phoenix area was construction. We created our, if you want to say, our own money. And when the financial crisis happened and the building and real estate just tanked and went bye-bye, it killed Phoenix. And let me tell you, I've said this before, when Phoenix came back, they said, we're going to diversify and we're going to make sure that this never happens to our community again. So here we are, 2 million more people later, and approximately 15, 17 years later. And we are very strong in a lot of different sectors. And you know what? Construction is not at the top. Healthcare, biosciences is the top. We saw jobs increase last month in this particular sector. Semiconductor and advanced manufacturing, this is an area where we have seen it kind of stagnate, but that doesn't mean that they aren't holding. In fact, the greater Phoenix area only saw a 1% in the layoffs or discharge in the last month. And that's been pretty consistent throughout the year. So we're not seeing any layoffs, as again, people saying, oh, this might be happening. Or you might see in the news that 75 people were laid off, which is unfortunate, but it's not the massive layoffs that you really need to, number one, see a recession, number two, see increased foreclosures, which we're going to talk about that as well, or a decline in values. We also, number three, comes in at information technology, software, and cybersecurity. This has nothing to do with construction. This is a whole new chunk of industry for Phoenix. Business and financial services. People don't realize how large we are. Also, our trade, transportation, and logistics has just exploded. With Interstate 10 literally going from California to Florida, we've expanded the freeway system and we're continuing to grow. Transportation and logistics being right off of Interstate 10 just outside of California. It's made Phoenix an ideal place to move some of those Southern California operations to Arizona. Now, coming in at the sixth largest sector, that is going to still be construction and real estate, but let me tell you, the difference back then was they were building single family homes. That's what they were building. That's what encompassed real estate. Okay. The construction and real estate development today is still single family homes. It's also freeways, both widening new freeways and also new roads. We're also talking about a ton of apartment complexes and rental communities. We didn't have that back. In fact, Phoenix has unfortunately been the top over 5,000 new units built in the last couple of years here in the greater Phoenix area. Commercial real estate, we see more warehouses, we see more manufacturing and distribution facilities, and we're going to continue to see these grow, especially on the west part of the valley. We also have airports, and then we also have mixed use development throughout the greater Phoenix area. So It is still a large part of our industry, but it's a much broader part of construction. It's not just single family homes. And like I said, we have a very strong job market out here right now. In fact, 9 of the top 12 sectors have reported an increase just in August alone. All right, let's just jump straight into interest rates because this is where we have had the biggest impact in the real estate market. And I cannot wait to share with you. I mentioned to you last month that we were at the precipice of the market changing. I said things had changed just a week prior to me recording the August video. I said I was going to have an update for you in September. This girl was spot on, and I cannot wait to tell you. Don't go anywhere. All right, rates. Let's talk about what has happened with interest rates. We saw the jobs report being released. We knew that that number was significantly low. We knew that the Federal Reserve was strongly considering, which we now know was going to be a reduction. Now, in anticipation of those rates being reduced, the rate being reduced, we saw interest rates in the mortgage sector kind of trickle down. Let's take a deeper dive. If you look at what happened in the month of August, you can see how different events cause different things to change. Okay, we've always said this that politics doesn't affect the real estate market, and it also doesn't affect interest rates. It is the policies. And so, again, there's a lot of things going on right now. And let me tell you, nobody knew who Jerome Powell was more than just a few months ago, but he's been in the news quite a bit lately, right? So, when we saw all of this conversation, we knew the jobs report, we were waiting for it. It came in and it was low, and we knew the feds were considered. This time they were actually saying it was going to happen. We saw interest rates start to trickle down just a little bit in that anticipation. This is what you got to watch for, guys. If you are thinking of buying in the next year, you got to give us a call. Let's talk about it now. We want to get you ready because this is going to happen several more times over the next 12 months. And what you want to do is watch for the market to signal that rates are going to go down and get out there before the other buyers. I'm telling you right now, we are in this very small, the window is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It's still a buyer's market, but the time is limited. And I'm going to get to all those numbers here in just a moment. On September 16th, if you were an FHA buyer and you had good credit, you would be able to obtain an interest rate of 5.91. Now, before you say anything, you're going to be like, that's not low. We want 3 or 4. Those days are probably not in our near future. Threes, definitely no. Fours, perhaps in maybe a couple of years. It really depends on what happens. It's not going to happen next year. So, and it's not going to happen in 2 years. It's going to take several years if it is to ever get down to the fours. So on a pivot here, let me just point out, if you are really looking for interest rate, if that's what your magic number is, 4% or lower, you're going to want to buy new construction now because right now the builders, and these are national builders, usually under 650, that are offering permanent fixed rate 30-year loans, 3.99%. If you did not know that, call us because I'm telling you, when this buyer's market closes up, and it will be closing up in 2026, when it closes up, those will be a thing of the past. And you're going to say you missed it again. All right. So on September 16th, if you were within literally a 2-hour window, there was a 5.91. By September 18th, keep saying the wrong date, September 18th, after the feds lowered their rate by 1/4%, so 0.25%, rates started to go back up to 6.05. I know that's not too big, but they went back up to like over 6.2 when the Fed rate went up. Sorry, down. Here's the thing. The Fed rate does not necessarily correlate with mortgage rates. If you're waiting for the news to tell you, hey, interest rates are down, it's already behind us. And that means there's going to literally be, if interest rates go down 1% from that 6 number to a 5 number, there will be 100,000 more buyers in our market. I know that doesn't sound like very many, but 100,000, let's just hope that doesn't happen because it would be insane if we had 100,000 more buyers. We're seeing about 6,000 contracts a month. So if we saw a flood of even 10,000 more buyers, that's going to make it very difficult for the buyers to really get the great opportunities that they are getting in there today with. This is what I mean, guys. You don't want to wait. We're getting closer to the end of that, like I said, that buyer window. Last month, I had predicted that we were going to see new contracts, and I would report it. Here it is. 18% it went up in 1 week. 1 week. It just surged. Well, actually, the whole month's numbers. 18%. That's how much it went up when interest rates basically just went down to 6%. What's going to happen when it goes down to 5? I'm not trying to make you buy if you don't want to buy. What I'm trying to say is if you're waiting for that bottom, if you're waiting for that opportunity, this is it. That's what I'm saying. All right, let's talk about the actual market. And I'm going to have to explain this to you so you understand the numbers. This is for the nerd in me and hopefully the nerd in you. Because when you're really trying to time or watch the market, you have to understand how this works out. All right, CMI, that stands for Cromford Market Index. Cromford is a data compilation company that has been in our MLS system for over 20 years now. You can't pull these numbers any other way, and they're proprietary equations, etc. Right? These are mathematicians that have translated numbers to a story for us, and now I get to tell you the story. The number, the CMI, if it's under 90, that's going to be a buyer's market. The longer it is a buyer's market and the lower it goes, prices will go down. I should say prices, values will go down. Okay. So during the market crash in 2008, the CMI got as low as 25. If it's between 90 and 110, that's a balanced market. Still a good time to buy, still a good time to sell, but it's about, being fair. You're going to have to give and take. Homes in good condition, priced well, will sell well. You might have to give a little bit of concessions. That is the first thing to go, by the way. And repairs, maybe negotiated, maybe not. Like, again, it's, a balanced market. This is also when usually the appreciation is at about the cost of living inflation, which again, national, it said 2.7, but here in Phoenix, it's 0.2. So that means balanced market would be a 0. Okay. Now, anything over 110, that's a seller's market. A seller's market is what we saw 5 years ago when everybody was kind of throwing up when they saw how much money they had to throw at the house. The ugliest houses back to power poles and freeways and homes in horrible condition and roofs leaking and every home sold. Nobody wants to be in that market again. That is an extreme seller's market. Okay, now, if we look at what the CMI was, the September 6th, this is when Tina Tambour, she's the analyst for Cromford, pulled these numbers. It shows, let me point out the first part, it's the inventories at 97.2, okay? We were at 100 just a month ago. That's telling you how fast it's going down. The buyer demand, this is where I said this could change like overnight. Inventory takes a little bit more time to grow. It can be absorbed quickly if you have more buyers. So while it's been slowly going down, it's been taking its time, it can quickly go back up. Now, I have a message for sellers. This does not mean the market is changing at this point for sellers to see or feel it. And we're going to touch on that in a moment. Okay. This is for buyers at this point, anyways. Okay. Okay, so back to the buyer demand has increased by 2.2 points, put it at 78.3 for an overall all of Greater Phoenix at 80.6, which is just under a balanced market. Okay, that means that, again, my prediction was we're going to be somewhere between 3 and 5% below year over year in December. We'll see where I'm at. Right now, we're in that window, and I'll show you those numbers in just a moment. The point that I'm trying to make, first of all of Phoenix isn't that number, so you're going to have to just stay tuned. What I want to show is I pulled this back up for today, and just in the 2 weeks since Tina pulled this number, It's that 80.6 has already gone up to 81.7. And the buyer demand has gone up to 80. Do you see how quickly it's going up? If it continues at this pace, we're going to be in a balanced market by November. All right, let's break this down. I'm giving you the general Phoenix Valley numbers, but every city, honestly, is completely different. Let's take a look. This particular sheet right here looks a little busy. I'm going to leave it up here for a moment for you. Let's first look at the top sellers markets, okay? And we're going to also point over to the index number for last month, the change, and the now number. I want to point out what's happening here. We saw several cities that were just barely from balanced markets move up into buyers markets. Look at Scottsdale at 103 last month. It increased 25% in 1 month. That's how quickly it can change. This again is not values. This is went from a balanced market to a seller's market. And that means less concessions, probably not, as good price negotiations. And the ones that are priced well and look nice sold much quicker. Okay. So that's what this tells me. Also, Cave Creek, it was a balanced market last month at 110, although the highest kind of rating of that balanced market, and it jumped to 125. That's a 14% increase. So again, in 1 month, a market, an area can completely change. Let's look at the balanced markets. The balanced markets, surprisingly, is Gilbert, and Gilbert is considered the new Scottsdale. Now, it also changed 14%, and I would guess by next month, if everything continues the way it is, that is going to change to a seller's market. So if you are a buyer and you're looking in Gilbert, you got to act quickly because it's now starting to favor sellers. Now, this is not the case in every single city. As you can see, there's a lot of buyers markets. In fact, if we go to the next screen, let me just point out that there is a total of 10 sellers markets right now. There's 13 buyers markets and there's 6 balance markets. So overall, again, it's kind of telling you if you're not looking for new construction, you're probably either in a balanced market or a seller's market, right? That's not good. If you're new construction, if you are thinking of buying in the suburbs, I'm telling you, there is honestly no better time. You're not going to see this 20% reduction that other YouTubers are saying. I didn't even say that right, but you're not going to see that reduction in that way. You might see it in the interest rates, you might see it in the concessions, but the price points are pretty consistent, guys. Again, we'll talk about what the actual numbers look like in a moment. But if you are considering new construction and you're in the outlying, looking in the outlying areas, give us a call today. You don't ever want to go into a new sales office without representation. I cannot emphasize this enough. The builder's rep is there to represent the builder. They will be very nice to you, and by law, they only have to be fair and honest. They don't have to be forthcoming, and they aren't pushing for you. So there's many times that they'll tell you no when they'll tell us yes. Also, if you don't use a realtor, you don't get any benefit. They don't give you any kind of credit. They might say you do, but they won't. So don't go in there without representation. I don't care which builder it is. Bottom line, guys, if you are looking for lower than market interest rates, whether you're talking resale or new construction, now is the time. The very first thing to go when this market starts moving more towards the sellers, and it will be, I am so sure it's going to be in the February, March timeframe. Think about it. Everybody that calls us says, we're going to buy in the springtime. We're going to buy in the springtime. Yeah, that's when most of the buyers come out. That's when we're also going to see more inventory. So that's for those of you who are waiting for nice homes to come on the market. There's not a lot of them that on the market right now. I'm going to show you that too, the inventory. Needless to say, if you are looking for below market rates, resale or new construction, now is the time. And the reason you do this with resale is because the sellers will give you concessions. They won't be giving concessions when it moves more towards the seller side. All right, let's get into some more numbers and see how this can motivate you or help educate you. Median number today is going to be 445,000. That is just a slight decline than what we saw literally a year ago. So when you look at the market this way, which I don't know how the media is going to report it. But when you look at it this way, it looks like we're flat. When actually, when you pull average cost per square foot, did I say that right? Cost per square foot, we that's where we're seeing the decline. So we're seeing a year over year right now at a negative 3.4%. And like I said, I think we're going to finish the end of the year somewhere between 3 and 5%. Let's see how close I get. But that does not mean that every home has gone down in value, either only 3.4% or as much as 3.4%. Now, here's the thing, like I said, not every home is negative 3.4. Here's the breakdown. So when you're looking at different price points, you're going to see different reactions. Also, if we looked at the most appreciation that we had a year ago or 2 years ago, it was over the 3 million. That's where we've had the biggest depreciation, etc. So when you add it all together, that's when it comes in the negative 3.4, but it varies not only on price point. This is just one way to look at the numbers. It also depends on area and type of product and whether it's old, new, and all the etc. When we look at year over year sales, August has shown an increase of over 3%. This is monumental, guys, because we are starting to see the market pick up in every single way. We're seeing inventory go down, we're seeing buyer demand starting to pick up, and we're seeing contracts, more contracts being written. I'm telling you, this is the bottom of the buyer's market. So again, this if you're on the edge of the shelf, if you're on the edge of the ledge, get off it. Give us a call. Set up a Zoom meeting. Let's get you to fill out a loan application, especially if you want the best rates that are out there. You need to have good credit score and low debt to income. So it's more than just having a down payment. There's a couple of different factors. We want to have that conversation with you. Active listings. Yes, we have seen an increase. In fact, here's the thing. Again, people don't understand how Arizona is seasonal. Our buyer season is January through April, just to make it simple, right? The rest of the country is still on freeze. Most of the buyer markets in the rest of the country are like May, June till September. We're kind of in hibernation. We're the opposite. So when the media started picking up that there were more listings on the market that they had ever seen in April, we were like, yeah, we know that. That's like old news. We had seen bigger numbers since January. Again, that's our peak season. Now, when they kept going on about how, 500,000 extra homes and there's more homes than there are buyers and all, again, the national news, we started to see that dip. We've actually come down to only about 25% higher than we were last year. But let me remind you guys, we weren't at 100%. We did finally hit 100%. I think 104% was the highest that we got. But at the same time, while the news was reporting higher numbers for the rest of the country, we were already on the slope down. In fact, if you look at only single family homes, which is the vast majority of the people that are buying today, we took those out. We're only at 16,000 total right now today at the time of this video, which is just under 17% more than what we had last year. I'm telling you, it's not an overabundance of inventory anymore by any means. New listings over the last 25 years, if you look at what the norm is, look at how the last 20 years have been significantly higher. We have just been so low. We've been so extreme on everything in the last 5 years. If anybody compares what's happening today with anything that's only happened in the last 3 to 5 years, it's inconclusive data. Like you don't have what the norm is. And the norm is basically you need a large set of data. And the last 3 to 5 years is just not enough. We are still seeing more cancellations than we normally do this time of year. And so we're going to continue to see that inventory go down, not only by absorption, but by cancellation. And look at this, guys, expireds. These expireds are listings that I don't know if it's the agents or if it's the sellers. I just recently went to a $7 million listing open house. It was honestly the nicest home I've ever seen. And I've been in homes as much as $23 million. This home was stupendous, but for its area, There's no way it would ever appraise that high. Now, there could be a cash buyer that's willing to come in and buy this amazing home. But I don't know, I just don't see that happening, not near that price. Needless to say, the amount of money that these listing agents, it's a team that's doing this. This they put so much money into their marketing, their advertising, their publishing, their events, their videos. It's usually about 1%. So they probably put somewhere around seven to $10,000 into this. When I was talking to someone that did the design in the home at the open house, she was explaining to me that they intended to live in the home. That's why they built it up so amazing. Like it's just amazing. And all the furnishings are there, and we're talking top notch, absolutely everything, like absolutely gorgeous. And but she said, but you know what? They were like, you know what? If we could get 7 million, we'll take it, and we'll just do another project. And I was like, well, what if they don't sell it? She's like, well, then they'll move in. So I'm like, so they're kind of just testing the market. Maybe. I don't know. Like, is there a lot of those? That's the luxury market. But I also know that there are other homes that have been on the market earlier this year, beautiful homes. And but they were overpriced. And I feel like again, same kind of concept for the seller. If I get this price, I would be motivated to sell. And they didn't sell. And that's again, that's what these expireds are, and that's what some of these cancellations are. Now, some of you might say, well, what about the foreclosures? What's going on with the foreclosures? Well, let me tell you, I don't know why. We can never, like, again, last month, we reported there was 131 foreclosures. And I know that sounds funny because we're comparing this to a year ago, the same time where there was only 35. So when you do 35 to 131, it looks like a lot. But first of all, we went from last month to 131 to this month of 79. Why is the change? I don't know. Is it enough to even worry about? I don't know. No, I don't think so, to be honest with you, because when we compare it to '07, when it was low like this again, really, really low numbers, and then all of a sudden it jetted up, look how much has to happen before the foreclosures are a concern. Really. Days on the market right now at contract are 48. This is the median. So it varies from area to area and price point to price point. Condos, any high density housing is going to take a lot longer. You have to price it well. You have to show it well. And again, gosh, I don't understand these sellers. If they're even thinking about selling their home, why would you hire a realtor to use cell phone photos? They still, I know you guys look online and you see these. I don't understand that. Don't ever sacrifice your property's success by picking. There is discount agents, but there's discount agents that still offer good services. Concessions today they're staying pretty consistent, about 57%. A year ago, right now is 56%. That's the same. That 10,000 has been pretty consistent, but it does vary on price point and it also varies on area. So for instance, it's kind of hard to get a $10,000 concession in Chandler versus Surprise. Surprise, and then when we look at what the price points are, they're all over the board, but the majority of the concessions are coming in around that 225 to $600,000 price point. And you know what? Almost all of that is FHA. If your loan amount, I'm just going to pick a round number, 400, okay? If your loan amount you bought in January of this year, or the reason you didn't buy in this year, the loan amount was 400,000. It was because your payment was 2731. Now this is just principal and interest. So you were like, yeah, that's just not going to work for me. Okay. So you continued to rent. Well, now here's the thing. Today, without any concessions from the seller, that same price is at 2465. That's what it's going to cost you per month. That's more in line with what rents are. Okay, I'm thinking $400,000 loan. I'm thinking even a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 2 car garage starter home. Okay, 450, maybe even 430. In one of the more, I wouldn't even say rural areas. You can get homes that price in Chandler and Gilbert right now, just to let you know. Needless to say, that 2,500, let's just call it 2,500, is doable. Okay, but here's the thing: if we can get the buyer concessions, and right now we can, And we can buy your rate down to 5.5%, which we just got somebody in 5.25 this week. Your monthly payment would be $22.71. And it's your own home. The American dream, owning your home, building your financial stability. If you are waiting for the market to drop, if you are waiting for that bottom, this is it, guys. This is where we are at. The buyer window is coming to narrow, narrow, narrow. As that continues up and it gets closer to 90, the first thing that's going to change is concessions. That is what's making it an ideal time to buy, to have less money out of pocket, and you can use some of it also to buy your rate down. What are you waiting for? Give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email, days, nights, or weekends. If you are wondering if the market is going to crash, my answer is going to be no. If you are wondering if your home is going to slip 3 to 5% before it starts going back up, yeah, that's very possible. But 1% interest rate is like 10% in value. So even if you use a little bit on the price, you're going to save on the interest rate and the metrics that I just showed you. If I'm not explaining that correctly, you're just going to have to give me a call. And if you're thinking of selling your home, you definitely have some must things that you need to do. The only homes that are selling right now are two homes. Number one, homes that have been completely remodeled and priced well, or homes that haven't been remodeled or maintained, and there's a big discount. If you don't want to be in either one of those buckets, if you don't want to put in $100,000 remodel, or if you don't want to take $100,000 off each price, and I'm exaggerating, of course, I'm just picking round numbers, you want to give us a call. We can set you up for success. All right, until next time, see you all soon. Bye.